I'd appreciate it. Call the roll for me.
Hill.
Here.
Wadsworth. England. Almond. Bedsole. Grinyard. Chestnut. Faulkner. Clammy. Pettis. Robbins. Simpson. Starnes. Stringer. Tillman. We have a quorum.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. We got 4 bills today, and we're going to start with Senator Gavan. And so, Senator Gavan, would you come up and talk to us about Senate Bill 255? Please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In a nutshell, during a state of emergency, this allows 40 days rather than 20 days for a potential parolee to have their hearing. Chairman wants to get out here quickly, so I'm not going to talk anymore.
All right. Are there any questions for Senator Gavan? That's the way I read it too, Senator. Just in the case of emergency, they got 40 days rather than 20. There's a motion been made. Any questions? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Senator, you got a favorable report. We appreciate you very, very much.
Thank you much.
Let's talk about Mr. Smitherman's bill, if we could. Senator Smitherman's 317. I told him I would be glad to handle this for him. But ladies and gentlemen, this is a bill that we've passed out of this committee, and I believe we have passed this off the House floor. This bill 317 basically puts clergy, ma'am. I got 317.
Oh, y'all went up. Okay, sorry, I didn't know you went up.
We can do 312. What's 312?
I didn't know you jumped.
Wait a minute. What did we just do?
We've already passed 3 of the 4 bills. We're on the last one, Mr. Faulkner. But we do appreciate you being here.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got you now.
We've only had Gavan up here. That's 255.
Yes, sir, but he did such a good job, we gave him the other 3 as a bonus. We'll get you in a second.
Sounds like how it went last night up the stairs.
It does. I know it. I got you. Senator Smitherman's bill, which is 317, deals with clergy in a position of trust, and that individual being under the age of 19 or protected, which is under the age of 22. And like I said, I really believe we took this up. I think we've already, ma'am. Whose bill? Halsey's bill. I thought it was. So. Thank you very much. A motion for a favorable report and a second. Are there any questions about this bill? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, ma'am. Senator, let's talk about Senator Barfoot's bill for a minute. Senator Barfoot's bill is 312. Senator Barfoot's bill allows an inmate to participate in a parole hearing either virtually by means of video conference or similar communication equipment. It allows the inmate to see and hear the members of the parole board, but not to be allowed to see, hear, or interact with the victims or victims' family or crime victim advocates who wish to also attend the parole hearing, and that's the essence of this bill. If y'all have got it, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I have a substitute that is being passed out at this moment.
Mr. Faulkner, you got a substitute right now.
Well, yeah, Mr. Chairman, we had talked about amendment, and I thought it would be easier to make it as a substitute. No, I don't have an amendment.
Is this one page when the substitute?
That's it. Yes, sir.
Okay. If y'all want to, take a second. Let's take a look at it. What is the difference, Mr. Faulkner? I'm
So,
with Mr. England. I don't see the difference.
well, Mr. Chairman, it is the parole board may allow an inmate to participate, and it is via telephone as of the effective date of this act, which would be October 1st, 2024. And then on or after October 1st, 2025, it could be via video conference or other similar communication system that allows the inmate to interact with members of the parole board. It maintains the language, paragraph B, that the inmate shall not be allowed to see, hear, otherwise interact. Does not change that at all. But it is permissive. This is not a requirement. It is, the parole board may allow an inmate to participate, and as of before October 1st, 2025, it's by telephone, and then after, they're to develop a similar video conference system. But the essence of the bill is that it is up to the parole board.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment to the substitute.
I tell you what,
We haven't accepted the substitute, though.
we got a sub. I think we're gonna have to adopt.
Can I talk about what I'd like
You
to do with the
certainly
amendment
may.
first?
Sure, why not?
I would like to amend line 13, the parole board, and instead of the word may, the word shall allow an inmate to participate by phone. Because I understand what he's doing with the substitute to allow telecommunication, telephone first, to give an extension of time to October 1st of 2025. I support all of those to create the technology to allow this to happen. But there is a right for people to be present at involved in court proceedings. I appreciate what he's done to make sure that the victims' families or crime victims will not be seen. I think the parole board can make sure that the camera is focused only on the parole board. So that way the inmate is only looking at what the parole board said, so there will be no required communication between the victim and the inmate at this time. I completely agree with what he's done to give more time to implement this session. However, there is just a fundamental right for people to have the opportunity to have their voice and be present on something that involves their right, their life. So at that point, if we adopt the substitute, I would make a motion for an amendment from may till shall.
Mr. Chairman? I would be opposed to that amendment and would not consider it friendly. As I discussed in announcing the sub, that is the key to this. If we put in the word shall, we then have to go and cover what happens when that telecommunications equipment does not operate, because now you're bestowing a right on someone, and then you've got to plan for those contingencies. I did not have to plan for those contingencies by saying it's may, because it is permissive and there's no right bestowed.
But the point for may is that they also may not. So if they may not allow these people to come up there, that's the way I've always been taught. If somebody may do something, that means they also may not do that thing. So if they may not do that thing, then the whole purpose of this bill can just be thrown out the window, and the parole board can just say, no, we're not doing that because we don't have to because it's may.
Well, there is a distinction, as we all know as lawyers, between may and shall, and that is correct.
Mr. England.
At the appropriate time, I'd like to lay the substitute on the table.
Second. Go ahead, Mr. Wadsworth. Goodness.
And this is directed to Representative Faulkner. In the original bill, it had paragraph D, said an inmate may waive his or her right as provided in subsection A, but in the substitute, that's been removed. Does that mean that if they don't have any, nobody can waive it, or is that what it's saying?
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
Sure.
Yeah, so Representative Wadsworth, that's correct. I mean, this is, if you take the word from shall to may, you do not have that right. So then you don't have any right to waive.
Mr. Faulkner, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see I don't see any reason that an individual who is on parole before the parole board should not be allowed to have whatever say he wants to have, as long as it does not impact or come in contact with the victim or any member of the victim's family. If you make it May, then there won't. Then there's a all likelihood they will not be there, and that's just I cannot go along with that. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to jump in here real quick, and if the sponsor was here, there were some questions that I would like to ask. And Chairman, I realize you're standing in for him, and I'm not sure how far deep in the discussion, but there was something said by Representative Simpson that I just disagree with, and if I'm wrong, that's great. But I don't know that parole is a right. And so I'm trying to figure out what exactly we're trying to accomplish here. Fundamentally, I hear what is being said, that parole is a right and that they have the right to be involved in their court proceedings. And as far as I know, this isn't a court proceeding, but there is a process. So let's not pretend like that the inmates aren't represented to the parole hearing and that there's not an extensive background check and there's not interviews that go on that lead up to this process. I think that oftentimes we unfortunately have gotten to this area where we're trying to do what's right by the inmates, and I'm all for the equal treatment of people, but we also have victims here. And let's not forget they are called victims for a reason, and they're going to be victimized again and again with every hearing they have to come through. And we can try to put amendments on it to keep that from happening, but why should they have to go through this? The person had their day in court, which they had to face their accused, and now we're putting them back through it again because now we're calling it a right. Parole is not a right, it's a privilege. And I'll just offer this. In my role as the jail administrator, I had to serve as an appeal process. The inmates would violate rules in our facility in which they had due process. They had a hearing officer that conducted those. But when they appealed those rule violations, eventually it made its way to me. And I would sit down, look at them face to face, and we would talk about the rule violation. And during that time, the inmates would be on their absolute best behavior because they knew that I was the guy they had to convince to reduce their time and perhaps segregation or whatever other privilege restrictions, things of that nature. But time and time again, I would go back and I would look at their communications after the meeting, and the things that they would say about me or the facility or things like that, they were less than perfect. So I guess my point here is we can put them on a video in front of the parole board and let them put on their best behavior and their best foot forward. But we're not necessarily gaining anything by that process. We're not getting a more accurate picture. So, at the end of the day, I appreciate what Representative Faulkner is trying to do here. It gives the board that opportunity because if the board feels like that's important to have that person available to be before them, then I want them to be able to do that. That's logical to me, but to say that this is a right is just not correct. Parole is not a right, it's a privilege.
Mr. Simpson.
Yes, I never said parole was a right, but we're talking about a hearing, and you talked about when you talk to people, you talk to them face to face. I understand the victims, and I've fought for victims, and I will continue to fight for victims in this courtroom. We've made sure that the victims shall not be allowed to hear, see, the inmates shall not be allowed to see, hear, or otherwise interact with victims, victims' families, or crime victim advocates. And that makes sure that they can't see them, so the camera will be focused that way. But we have to look at every side of a coin. You have to look, you talk about due process. If someone is in a room where 3 people are going to decide what the future of that person to be, to say you as an individual don't even have the right to appear in court, to appear, that's a right. I'm not talking about the right to parole. I'm not talking about the right to be released. I'm talking about the right to at least, if somebody's going to talk about my future, at least let me hear what they're saying. If an inmate is there to say, listen, if the parole board says, listen, you're not behaving in prison, you're not following what you're supposed to do, you've got too many disciplinaries, you've got too many of these things going on, you haven't done this, get your GED, get a trade, get a skill to go through this, at least the person has the opportunity to hear from the parole board what they can do for the time that they need to show up next time to come there. But to just say, no, you've already had your due process, you're in prison, I disagree with that fundamentally.
Mr. England.
Yeah, if I told anybody in this room that there's a government agency out there that has no oversight, everybody would be here going crazy talking about we need to figure out how to do it. Currently, the parole board has absolutely no oversight. None. We know that there have been instances where they've not followed the law in terms of set-asides. We know there's been incidents where they don't go by guidelines. We've also known of other incidents where the process has been abused to the detriment of the applicant. So when you make this may, and without an ability to force them to do something, the very likelihood is that they're just not. There are only 2 states in the country that don't allow the applicant to address the parole board. We are one of those 2. Everywhere else where parole is, the applicant has a right to, or has the ability to address the parole board. And again, this doesn't increase the likelihood of anything nefarious going on, but at the same time, it increases the likelihood that the parole board is more informed before they make a final decision about whether or not someone gets released. There's been incidents in the past where the parole board was not even aware if the person was alive or dead. They denied a dead person. This would certainly make that less likely. And ultimately, if we want a system that works, we have to have a meaningful parole system, because the only way we can guarantee public safety and guarantee that this applicant has the ability to be successful is to give the parole board as much information as possible. And this is also a way to do that. You never know. Somebody may go before the parole board virtually and have a terrible testimony, and then that's more of a reason why they decide not to. But at the same time, some of the information they can be able to give life to and give them an opportunity for release. And also this process here today, we usually don't walk into the room, right, and hand in a substitute and say, here. That ultimately guts the bill. Let's just be honest. So I don't even like the way the process itself works, especially considering that this isn't a surprise. The agenda's been known for a few days. If we were going to come in here and consider a substitute that essentially guts the spirit of the bill, at least give us more than 15, 20 minutes to actually digest it and see if there's something that we can do to work on what you submitted. This actually undermines the process, and I think it makes it a duty of ours to set it on the table, because nobody ever had a chance to even discuss it. And again, it changes the entire spirit of the legislation. And I'm surprised that we're even having this conversation on a substitute, because if somebody did that to your bill, you'd be out, you'd have a fit. So, I'm going to, at the appropriate time, I'm going to renew my motion to lay this on the table and actually restore some respect for the process we've got.
Go ahead, Mr. Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I did discuss with you that I was bringing an amendment to the bill. I have been pulled in 1,000 different directions today on other people's bills, and I apologize that I had to get this down here when I did. It is a 1-page substitute, and when y'all first looked at the bill, Representative England, you said, I don't see what the difference is. So to say that it guts it and changes the spirit of the bill, I think is unfair. And I thought you were going to have the time of your life today with me and Matt Simpson disagreeing with each other for once, and you not having to say anything. But to me, you're unfairly acting like I did something intentionally to the members of this committee that I've served on since 2014 when I arrived here with the chairman, and I don't appreciate that. And so, no, I let you have your piece.
You didn't let me have anything. You're not the chair of the committee.
All right, hey, one at a time. Finish it up.
I'd let you speak without interrupting you.
You did. Go ahead, Mr. Potter. Finish.
So, Mr. Chairman, I believe this substitute, this 1-page substitute, is doing the things that Representative Bedsole talked about. I believe that it is offering that, something that we do not allow presently in our law, that it's offering the participation. It's even asking for a system to be set up to allow that participation. So I do think it's a good substitute. I don't think it guts the intent of the sponsor's bill. And I would move to give the sub a favorable report.
But there's a motion, there's an initial motion to lay it on the table. Mr. Simpson, do you have anything else?
I do.
Look at the three of us hijacking a meeting. How about that? It's taking the end of the session to do it. Aside from the change that would require this to be from may to shall, I am asking Ray to change the amendment to the substitute to put subsection D that is in the current bill back into the substitute where the inmate may waive that right, as the language currently is, since it got removed from the substitute. I don't know where the committee is going to go on this, but if we do adopt this substitute, I am going to push very hard for this amendment to the substitute.
Tell me what your amendment is one more time.
Ray, do you have it?
Well, let me ask a question about the amendment. So if you're, sorry to interrupt, but
No, you're good.
if you're adding D, do we need to add C back? Because, just so we know if there's a failure of the communication, even if it's a may,
Let me see your copy of the,
I mean,
he's got my bill. Do you have the bill? Yeah, let me see this. I'm sorry, I just want to see the, what
yeah,
we're talking
I think
about.
even if it's may and they're having a hearing and you lose
So,
communication.
So if electronic communications fail or in any way erupted during the hearing, is that what you're talking about putting it back?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I don't have any problem putting that back as well.
Right, because even if we're in a may situation and they are having a hearing and it fails, well, then what do we, just.
I would think that would be accomplished by his current subsection C, some of the rules that they would have to establish by October.
But that doesn't say, I guess,
Now, it doesn't say it specifically, but
it just says shall develop a video conference or other similar communication system to implement the same. It doesn't say they can promulgate rules, so they're not able to promulgate any rules according to it.
I would consider that a friendly amendment to my
Your amendment
hypothetical amendment to the hypothetical substitute if we adopt those.
Judge, I ask for a roll call on all votes. Okay.
There is a process for parole court hearings. I do want to say that they do have an opportunity to tell their story to the IPO officer that interviews them. That's an opportunity for them to gather letters from the jail, the prison, or wherever they're located, and they can write a letter to the parole board, and it's attached with that interview to the for the parole board. So it's not like they do not have a say or a recommendation. They've got to sell that to that IPO officer, and that IPO officer makes a recommendation to the parole board. So they do have a say, and they are interviewed, and it's not like they're just going off their prison packet. So there is a previous packet. It will tell the details of the offense, their arrest record, and what they have done in prison, and also a recommendation from the IPO officer. So I don't see where they would need an opportunity to be on the I went blank. I'm sorry.
On the, to be before the board.
Before the board,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Well, let me tell you what we're about to do. I'm gonna carry this bill over till 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. We'll give y'all a chance to look at it and think about it, but I will tell you this, I've revoked a lot of people over 20 years. I didn't do it a single time that I wasn't looking at them eye to eye. If a petition to revoke came before the court, the person came before the court. Never did I revoke them in abstention. Never. So I will see y'all at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and we will have, Yeah, but I'm just saying this bill's being carried over till 9 tomorrow morning. I'm gonna let y'all talk about it a little bit. And we'll do it right, we can be right back here at 9 tomorrow morning for this bill. Last bill we got. Let's see, where is it, Randy? Here you go. Last bill we got is House Bill 465. Let me talk y'all through this real quick. If any of you do adoptions, any of you lawyers that do adoptions, you know many times you get these children at the point in time that they leave the hospital, and there's what we call a putative father registry. The putative father registry is the opportunity for the individual who may be the father of that child to register so that there's a record and notice made. I've had lawyers tell me that they would like to get that putative father registry prior to the time that they filed the petition for adoption. So I filed the bill as it is written. The DHR came to me and said, look, we are concerned that we do not want this to turn into a fishing expedition in lawsuits or in divorces or something of that nature. So if you'll look at the amendment substitutes this from basically being a bill that turns this into a public record to a bill that allows this putative father registry to be gotten only by the attorney who is representing the potential adoptive parents. He must sign an affidavit stating that that's why he's getting this information and that information will be limited for that particular purpose only. That is the purpose of so that the lawyer will know who the putative father is, if there is one. With that, I would ask that we adopt the amendment.
So moved.
Is there a second? Now, do y'all have any questions about, if any of you do adoptions, you understand putative father registry?
Motion for favorable report.
As amended?
Second.
Thanks. All right.
You gotta vote on that.
All right. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Hill. Your amendment is adopted. It's back to you. And I will make a motion for a favorable report as amended. Thank you, sir. All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I will see y'all at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and we will talk about Senator Barfoot's bill. Thank you.